The day was June 28th, 1914, a date loaded with symbolic weight. It was Vidovdan, the Serbian national holiday. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, along with his wife, arrived in Sarajevo. 45 minutes later, the royal couple was assassinated. The assassin, a 19-year-old student, the orchestrator, a high-profile private militia. Little the boy knew, the shots he fired would drag world into chaos, empires into ruins, and millions to the front lines. Above all, the lives of 40 million people were yet to be lost. Europe 1900, a continent struggling with a monopoly of the Big Three, Germans, Russia, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But the Austro-Hungarian Empire is where things are really heating up. It's a massive place, with different cultures and languages all mixed together. But it isn't the peaceful, multi-ethnic society it was supposed to be. It's filled with tensions between people wanting more rights. Whereas things are also tense in neighbors, especially here in Serbia. In 1903, there's a political earthquake. The king and queen are overthrown in a coup, and now the country is led by a new, ambitious generation of leaders who are ready to challenge the old powers in Europe. Their aim? To unite all Serbs and Slavs under one banner, a greater Serbia. But the challenge? The Austro-Hungarian Empire sitting right next door. The empire especially sees this ambition as a direct threat to its own control over the Balkans. At the same time, the people of Serbia are beginning to stir. There's growing resentment against the foreign empires that control their land, and a rising sense of nationalism is spreading among the younger generation. This is where things get serious. This is where the Black Hand comes in, a secret militia containing several high-ranking Serbian Royal Army members. The Serbian government officially denies any involvement, but they sure aren't stopping them either. There's a quiet agreement, an understanding. The Black Hand's agenda aligns with Serbia's interests, if they can pull it off, that is. A young student, a revolutionary in the making, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to see a free, united South Slavic people. In 1912, during the heat of the Balkan Wars, Gavrilo travels to Belgrade hoping to build some connections, and that's where the Black Hand comes into play. With his dedication to the cause, catches the attention of the Black Hand's high-ranking members. A quiet agreement forms, a bond forged in secrecy. Princip's journey from an angry student to a committed revolutionary is complete. The world's about to change, and Gavrilo Princip will play a central role in that change. Sarajevo, 1914. News arrived that Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was set to visit Sarajevo on June 28th. The occasion? A grand inauguration of a museum, heavily funded by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. A gesture to win hearts and showcase the empire's commitment to the region. Franz Ferdinand was no ordinary heir. His ambitions were already well known. He dreamed of restructuring the Austro-Hungarian Empire, giving the various ethnic groups, including the Slavs, representation in governance. On paper, it seemed progressive, but for the Serbian nationalists dreaming of a greater Serbia, it was nothing short of a nightmare. But a glimmer of hope arrived when the motorcade route was announced weeks prior to visit, making the visit for the radicals not any imperial ceremony. Instead, it felt like destiny handing them the chance they'd been waiting for, a rare opportunity to plan, rehearse, and perfect their intentions without drawing suspicion. The collaboration between the two groups was solidified, with young Bosnia's fervent idealists now under the mentorship of the Black Hand's experienced operatives. Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijevic, the head of the Black Hand, known by his alias Apis, and Major Vojislav Tankosic, another key figure within the Black Hand, assumed command of the logistics, He provided military training and weapons to the young plotters, ensuring the group had the tools they needed for what lay ahead. On the ground in Sarajevo, the young conspirators began to take shape as a team. Danilo Ilic, the de facto leader of the young Bosnia cell, assembled a group of 7 individuals to carry out the plan. Among them was Mehmed, Grabez, Popovic, Princip, now deeply embedded in the cause. Alongside him were 16-year-old Vaso Chubrilovic and Nedeljko Čabrinović, all united by a shared dream and a willingness to risk everything. With the motorcade route made public, the conspirators had a clear blueprint. They studied the route meticulously, identifying potential choke points and vantage spots. For the plotters, this wasn't just going to be an assassination. It would be a statement. It would symbolize the power of resistance and the inevitability of their dream. The morning dawned on June 28, 1914, a date loaded with symbolic weight. It was Vidovdan, the Serbian national holiday, a day to commemorate the Battle of Kosovo, a day of pride for some and a day of deep grief for others. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie had arrived in Sarajevo. As their train rolled into the station, the governor, General Oskar Potiorek, and other officials greeted them with both celebration and underlying unease. The day was planned meticulously. First, a visit to military barracks for an inspection of troops, then a formal reception at Sarajevo City Hall, followed by the event Franz Ferdinand was truly there for, the inauguration of a museum. As the motorcade began its route along the Apelki, we transitioned from the public spectacle to a darker hidden world. 7 young conspirators, or you may call them young Bosnians, had positioned themselves along the boulevard. The first in line was Muhammad Mehmed Basic, who stood near the Apelki street, armed with a pistol and grenade depending on the opportunity. A few meters away, Vaso Čubrilović held his 9mm tightly, ready to act if the first attempt failed. By the Latin bridge stood Nedeljko Čabrinović, gripping a hand grenade. His objective, to strike the Archduke's car directly. Fourth in line was Popovic, armed with a gun, stationed near Čabrinović as backup. Popovic himself had support of Trifun Grabeš, who was positioned near Kaiser Bridge, a few meters from City Hall. Finally, at the corner of Franz Joseph Street and Apelki, stood Gavrilo Princip. His target was clear. If all else failed, he would strike. The stage was set, but the fate had other plans. The first attempt failed. Muhammad Mehmed Basic got overwhelmed, his nerves no match for the pressure of the moment, could not pull the trigger. Next came Vaso Čubrilović, but fear gripped him too. The motorcade passed, and with it, his chance. Then came Nedeljko Čabrinović. With a fierce determination, Čabrinović hurled the hand grenade toward the Archduke's car, but fate once again had other plans. The grenade misses the target, causing massive chaos and prompting the driver to speed up the car to City Hall, which disabled the rest of preparators from taking next attempt. And against all the odds, the Duke reached the City Hall, seemingly undeterred. However, now the day's agenda would not proceed as planned. He would visit the hospital to see the injured victims of the attack. Little knew the Duke that this decision, this particular change in the plan, was going to shape the modern history, and with that the chain reaction has just started. The motorcade's driver was unaware of the updated route. Thinking museum is the last stop, made a wrong turn onto Franz Joseph Street. The car stopped to reverse. In that moment, fate aligned. Gavrilo Princip was standing at the corner of that exact same street, just few meters away from the car. He was wishing to be blown by the Čabrinović effort. The very car he wished his friend pulled the trigger on. The very car was now in front of him. His heart raced. But as he stepped forward, time seemed to freeze. He drew his 9mm, aimed and fired. All of the remaining conspirators were arrested in the following days. Their plot succeeded. Result achieved. Reaction unimaginable. By October 1914, the conspirators stood trial in Sarajevo. The courtroom bore witness to the grim faces of young men who had sought to change history. Gavrilo, Chabrinovich, and Vaso, all of them were blessed with second lives and were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Princip and Chabrinovich succumbed to tuberculosis in 1918 due to the poor prison conditions, while Vaso dwelled until 1990. Others faced harsher fates. Danilo Ilic, the mastermind behind the operation, along with 3 accomplices, was sentenced to death and executed in early 1915. And my friend, what followed was a chain reaction, a domino effect of alliances that plunged Europe into one of the darkest chapters in its history. The world was at war, and 40 million peoples were yet to be killed.